Philly area native and gigantic 76ers fan, Mike Jackson. Partners in a hugely successful production company with the great singer, John Legend. Jackson is a tremendous success in his own right as a TV and movie producer. And he says if women and people of color need quotas to provide opportunity for them in his industry, so be it.
I mean, I'm a mainline kid. I have tons of white male friends that I love and adore. But I'm not worried about them being uncomfortable.
Assorted views on the entertainment world and, of course, the Sixers, with award-winning producer Mike Jackson. Next on Fresh 24.
The Sixers lock all windows and doors. For the record! Yeah! Redick, can he get it off? And the putback turning garbage into goal.
Mike Jackson, I'm going to describe you as follows: a Philly guy, Emmy winner, Tony winner, producer of TV, film, stage, partners with John Legend, among others. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a Sixers fan. What did I leave out? Anything?
Don't forget the Eagles, but
the Birds.
Well,
let's talk about the fact that on Instagram, and this is proof that you're a great father, you raised your children, even though you're not living in Philly, to be Philadelphia sports fans. I saw Jones, your oldest, in an Eagles uniform. Good for you, my man. Perfect.
Hey, listen, dude. Listen, I not only am I not back home in Philly anymore, I've been in LA for forever, but I recently moved to the dreaded state of Texas, the home of the Cowboys. And, my kids are 2 and 1. But they came out of the womb with Eagles gear and Sixers gear ready to go. My son Jones already yells, "Go Birds!" EAGLES Eagles. The one thing I told my wife when we found out we were having children was they will go to the grave, as will I, a Philadelphia sports fan. So start them young.
Well done, my man. Yeah. You'll go down as a great father now. There's nothing else that you need to wear. Everything else is just secondary.
But nothing gives me more pride than wearing Eagles gear and Sixers gear in the state of Texas.
Awesome.
Even Phillies gear, when we lost to the Astros, I still had to talk a little smack just because.
Beautiful.
So
and you keep it up, my friend. Keep it up.
Absolutely.
A producer. I know that I worked as a producer or with a producer as the announcer for the Sixers, and everything fell on him. Every road passed through him. And it would seem like he would get none of the credit and all the blame. What is the role of a producer, and am I far off from some of the stuff that you have to deal with?
I mean, look, a producer is an everything person, right? I consider a producer like hosting a dinner party where you have to create the theme, create the guest list, hire the chef, go through the menu with them so that the food that's being prepared is accurate. We're basically like the person who brings all the elements to bear, whether it's, just taking an idea and building upon that idea, or it's already receiving a full script, whatever stage creatively a process we're in for content, our job is to take it and get it to screen or get it to stage. And whatever that means, we have to do it. But we're in the middle of all of it for sure. And as far as taking all the blame, yeah, if things get messed up, for sure the producers are going to be looked at as like, what happened? But, I think in success, we also do get a fair amount of praise as producers in TV and film in particular. A lot of light with success.
I've been watching the TV show The Offer, Al Ruddy, and him recounting how he got Godfather made. Is that far off some of the crazy stuff that he had to deal with?
I mean, that was a bit extreme. I really love that series, but no, I mean, it's hook 'em. You got to do whatever you got to do to get the job done, and there's lots of hurdles to kind of overcome. We work in a business where a small percentage of people actually get to create content, but there's a large amount of people pursuing that same dream. So there's a lot of desperation, a lot of other things that factor into play there. So more often than not, as you're building your career, what she was doing in this film, he was becoming a producer, putting together his first couple of films. You have no reputation, no track record. You know, you're going to do whatever you can within the bounds of what's legal, typically, to get your project made. Obviously, Ruddy did some stuff, or at least associated with some people that may be a little bit unsavory, but he's not the first and he's not the last. So whatever it takes, man. I'm not going to break any laws, but, you know, whatever it takes.
Get Lifted Productions, John Legend, of course, is one of your partners, and you guys met through Ty Stiklorius, someone who you went to the University of Pennsylvania with.
Well, no, I didn't go to UPenn. I didn't go to UPenn. I went to Penn State.
Oh, you went to Penn State. Forgive me. Yeah. You went to Penn State. That's right. But Ty and John Legend went to University of Pennsylvania. Right. That's right. Okay.
Ty and I were friends since we were like in grade school. Like literally, I was 6 years old and she was 4 years old. We went to a school called Friend Central School, and we met then and built a wonderful friendship throughout the years. She ended up going to Penn with John. I went to Penn State, and yeah, we all kind of became friends. They became friends first. Obviously, she introduced me to John. We built a friendship, and then collectively, we all forged our own kind of threesome version of a friendship.
And you were John's first manager, right?
I was John's first manager. I didn't know what the hell I was doing at that point in time. I was like throwing a lot of parties around.
And where was he on the success chart at that time?
He wasn't on the chart. Like he literally graduated from UPenn. He was 20 years old. He was just looking to get gigs in and around Philly. Ty at the time knew I was promoting and producing a lot of events in Philly and New York and surrounding cities. And she just asked me to help her friend get gigs. I was at a restaurant off of Rittenhouse Square, and I had him meet me there while I was on a date on a Friday night. And knowing nothing about the music business, I still was like, "Hey, kid, sing me a song." And he sang a Stevie Wonder song. I believe it was My Sherry Moore. Shut the whole restaurant down. And I looked at him and I was like, "I'll give you a call." And literally, I called my buddy. His name is Glenn Manco. He still lives in Philly. And at the time, Glenn was running a record label called Entra Records. And he just knew the music business inside and out. And I said, "Hey, dude, listen, I got this guy. I need help managing him. You're my guy." And he said yes. And we co-managed John for a year. Ultimately, I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into producing, and he wanted to get real representation. So we decided to part ways. But what had happened was a tremendous foundation of a friendship was formed during that year. And although I wasn't his manager anymore, I was one of his greatest allies. And anything I could do, whether it's just helping him carry equipment, to helping him get people to fill the room to see him perform, I did. And we just went on a path of friendship from that point forward, which ultimately led back to us launching Get Lifted many years later. But foundationally, that was the beginning of what's become one of the longest friendships in my life.
So talk to me about how Get Lifted got started, where the idea germinated from, and the fact that you have made quite a mark in the area of multiculturalism with your production company. Talk to me about all that.
At the time, it was right around when the market crashed in, I guess, like 08, 09, I think it was around there. I don't remember the exact year, but the market had crashed. Independent film was dying. And someone said to me, you know, the way to make it in this business is either you write the check, you're the talent, or you're born into it. And I was like, well, that's three strikes for me. But what I did realize was I was friends with a lot of talent, and I knew how to produce from my days back in Philly, quite frankly, working for Banyan Productions kind of gave me a really good skill set on what to do and how to deliver content. So I thought, well, my friend John is my closest friend who's talent and celebrity at that time. And I felt most synergistically aligned with him in how he viewed the world. The only issue was he wasn't in television and film. He was a musician, and I wasn't sure how that would translate. But ultimately, I just called him and I just said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. You know, I've been making these independent films. You've been coming to my sets. You know what I'm up to, you know, and I think that you're going to be a really important artist at some point. At this point, he had also won his, Get Lifted had come out, his album. He had won some Grammys. He was definitely like a known entity for sure, but he wasn't who he is today. And I just bet on what I believed to be the case, which was he was going to become a global star and have this platform. And I wanted to be a part of telling these kinds of stories that affected our community and people that look like us and people that also feel marginalized. So as far as like the development and evolution of Get Lifted and being, a thought leader and a content leader in multicultural space, like it was just inevitable that that's what we would do because we were two men of color that owned a production company. And we also had Ty, who was our partner, who was a white woman, but she also was very much aligned with our way of thinking in regards to, uplifting and shining a light on stories that needed to be told.
You've been quoted as saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that just because you're partnering with John Legend doesn't necessarily guarantee success. What did you mean by that? Well,
there's a term that they like to call celebrity production companies as a vanity company, where it's kind of like they slap their name on something, but they don't really want to do the work. They're not really taken seriously. And at that moment in time that we launched Get Lifted, it was kind of the case. There wasn't that many celebrity-led companies doing that well. There's always the examples of companies where like the celebrity was a major piece of talent, so they could put themselves into the film because they could get the movie made. We didn't have the luxury of doing that. So at the end of the day, not only did we have to fight the stereotype of being vanity producers, we also still had to bring great content to the table that people wanted to make. And, I guess what I meant by that, I know what I meant by that quote was just because you have that shiny light in your hand, that's stardom, it doesn't mean that the town is going to give you anything. A, there's a lot of stars that are circulating your orbit. And secondly, the proof's in the pudding. You still have to have great taste and great content. So nothing is given in this business.
I'm always fascinated by the creative process. Where do good ideas come from? Certainly life experiences, different events that occur in your life or that you read about or see. Talk to me about your creative process, where the ideas germinate from, and how you combine forces with John and Ty to eventually make it a movie or a show or something like that.
I mean, creativity can come from any place, right? I mean, I could have an idea while I'm sitting here speaking with you. I could see something on television that sparks a wonderful thought or an idea. I could read something in a magazine or a newspaper. Story comes from just living life and existing and being present in it and always trying to lean in. Once you have an idea of what it is you want to tell, i.e. a book, then you go option it. And then you go find the writer to kind of translate the book into like script form. Or if it's just a random idea, similar process, you start to think through that creative and you put an outline together. Ultimately, it comes down to the writing, right? You have to have a voice. You have to have someone that can translate whatever's going on in your head or on this book or in this magazine and put it on pages. So it always starts with that idea and then finding the writer to kind of captain the ship. And if it's an unscripted idea, it's still about how do you execute and get that vision on screen. So you still want to go kind of, if it's the voice, so you're not like writing a script, but you still have to show proof of concept. So you go out and try to stage a version of what that show could look like. But ultimately it comes down to building step by step levels to that content you're trying to create or that content you're trying to share, with the goal always being screen or stage. But obviously in between that, you have to find the money and you have to, have the wherewithal to do all of those things. And my job as a producer is to figure all of those things out and try to make it happen.
How do you reconcile, Mike, something that you want to do either because you believe in the cause, you're passionate about it, versus the pull from the other end? Is it commercially viable? Would it be a commercial success? How do you deal with that push and pull?
Well, if you look at Get Lifted and our track record as far as, our commercial appeal versus our prestige appeal, let's call it, doing the more niche films, the things that are less spoken about. I think that's how we've built our business, quite frankly, is on a thriving documentary slate that often talks about things that aren't considered commercial. Even some of our films, Monster, it's based off a book about a 16-year-old kid in prison, not necessarily the most commercial thing. So for us, it's always been about story and our desire to tell said story as opposed to the money. We always feel like money is out there, and if you're doing something that you're passionate about and that you believe in, the money will follow. Now, I will say, you can look at like Tyler Perry, guys like Will Packer, who do big, massive commercial movies, Kenya Barris, and they make a lot more money than us, right? Like, so there is that argument about, is it always about the story, or sometimes should it be about the money? And, for us, it's never been about that. But, I would be a liar if I was to say, as we continue to grow and evolve our business, that we don't think more about commerciality and what kind of content that we can create that kind of transitions over to that lane. Jingle Jangle is a really great example of something that was big and commercial, but still had the kind of DNA that we like in a Get Lifted Film Co. project. Even our show Rhythm and Flow, which was a hip hop competition series on Netflix. It's a competition show, but it still felt smart and elevated. And that too is actually very commercial as well. So we're transitioning into that more commercial zone, but we never want to lose the DNA of who we are as far as storytelling and telling those tougher stories and maybe the less commercial path forward.
Mm-hmm. Being a man of color and also everything that you've done in the multicultural space, there's a couple of issues I'd like to chop it up with you. One concerns, and I work at Temple University, where at the Klein School there is a big push to help in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, helping people of color, helping women in the sports media industry. How do you help people? How do you help them to level the playing field, people of color, women, while at the same time not making it harder or more difficult? And I might be, talking a little bit about quotas, let's say, for a white man, someone who isn't a racist, isn't prejudiced, and yet gets aced out of a job because of quotas, helping people of color, helping women, that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, let's start with that second part first, right? I mean, I'm a mainline kid. I have tons of white male friends that I love and adore. But I'm not worried about them being uncomfortable, to be honest. I'm not worried about them losing a job. There was decades of complete white men feeling very comfortable and not threatened at all in the workspace, especially within the entertainment industry. So unfortunately, if there's a movement where there's more awareness in creating jobs for women and people of color and all of us marginalized groups of people, and white men are getting less than, that's an unfortunate reality, I guess, of the process. But those same men have to understand that they've been sitting in the captain's seat for years and getting all the opportunities when everyone was on the outside looking in. So again, I would like for there to be a system where all people get to feel fulfilled professionally and everyone is working and that's the ideal. But I'm certainly not going to feel badly if less white men are working in the entertainment business because more brown and black folks and women are working. So that's just a byproduct of the process. With that said, how do we create more opportunities for these groups of people? It's really, people like myself that are in a position to develop content to continuously try to tell our stories and empower our people, both as directors and writers and actors, but also in the crew. Like Michael B. Jordan and a lot of other people are starting to put stipulations in their deals where like a certain percentage of the crew have to be women and people of color. And I just think it's people who are creating content and are in that position of power to foster those opportunities for those that need them. And specifically for me, I recently moved to Austin, Texas, and I was doing some speaking gigs out here. And I always realized afterwards, I would spend another hour or 2 hours talking to brown and black people that look like me, but don't have access to someone like me, in their pursuits of their dreams in the entertainment business. I often joke, like, I feel like a unicorn here. But what I've done is I've started this conversation series called Why Not Me? And I went to Jay Bernhardt, who was the dean of Moody School of Communications here at UT, and I asked him for the platform to invite my friends to come and have conversations and talk about our journey, and to keep asking ourselves a question, why not me? Which is what I think we often ask ourselves across many industries, like, why not me, as we continue to ascend or chase our dreams. And that's one way for me that I found that I can give back to the community. And I've already had, I've only done a handful, but I've had, Jay Ellis from Insecure and Maverick, and Robin Thede, who created Black Lady Sketch Show, Diallo Riddle, who's one of the great comedians and creators with Southside and Our Show Sherman Showcase. I just had Stephen A. Smith do my last one a couple weeks ago. Actually, this week, South by Southwest asked me to bring it to their festival, to the main stage. At Anthony Mackie, Yvonne Orji, this wonderful actor named Melvin Gregg, and then a woman named Deborah Martin Chase, who is the first Black woman to ever get a studio deal. She currently has a show called The Equalizer on TV, and she's made several movies and TV shows. So again, for me, what I can do to help bridge that gap is, again, to create opportunities for people that look like me, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, as well as use my platform and my voice in my day-to-day life to create dialogue and opportunity for those as well. And I think the more people that kind of do that, not only just create opportunities in the workspace, but also take time out of their personal life to share their story and share their relationships and create forums and opportunities to talk and engage with young people of color and women. I think that'll be really beneficial.
So that provides a nice bridge to my next question. In a society where, and the media certainly reflects this, we're more divisive and divided than ever. How do we bring people together, higher level of understanding, more love, more appreciation for one another? How do we get people to listen instead of trying to yell over each other all the time?
Mute Donald Trump? No. Too late for that. Damage done. Look, I think it's an interesting thing the way politics have polarized everything. And, I'm not saying like far left or far right, but I think anything needs people to meet in the middle. And I think we just need to extend ourselves and be open to dialogue, open to conversation, talk about the things that we'd like to see that we want to change, talk about the things we want to keep the same. But in anything in life that we're trying to affect change, it's really about communication and understanding that, just because you don't fully agree with someone, that doesn't mean you don't have the ability to comprehend their message. And if you can do that and you can find humanity in that, then I'd like to believe that you can find common ground. I live in Texas, man, and I actually live by Lake Travis, which is, 30 minutes from downtown Austin, and it is not Austin, and it is a different way of life out here. And when I went to vote in the midterms, I saw MAGA hats and a lot of red, a lot more red than blue, although I'm in Austin. So, but what I do with my neighbors and people that I just meet in my day-to-day life is I engage them in conversations. I deliberately talk to people and try to like get in their heads a little bit. And sometimes it could be a 2-minute conversation. Sometimes it could you can have a 30-minute conversation, but I'm always trying to bridge the gap. And I think the more that people do that, the better we'll become as a society, the better our art will be, the better everything will be if we can learn to coexist.
Check out our friends over at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation. PHL Sports Nation. Enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience.
You, as we've discussed in part already, have a tremendous resume and by all accounts, a real credit and success in your sector of the business. Yet none of us, including yours truly, ever escapes without critics or criticism. After pouring your heart and soul into a project and it takes 2, 3, 4 years to bring to fruition and you're very proud of it and somebody pans it, how do you deal with that?
This is going to sound okay. Criticism is a part of the game. I would take that question and steer it more in the direction of like, not necessarily being slammed by critics, because with complete humility, we've never really been slammed critically with our content. Thankfully, we've been really blessed in that regard that we've typically gotten well reviewed. But what I will say is we get slammed every day in the marketplace, going out with stuff that we really believe in, projects that we have, in our opinion, the best writers, the best talent attached, the best producing team, worlds and story areas where people are definitely going to want to like pay attention. And you put a lot of work into those, building those packages to present to buyers, networks, or studios. And those are the things that kind of tear me up. Those no's and getting turned and getting rejected for things that you really, really believe in. But what I've realized is, again, like, it's a really small target and lots of people are taking their shots. And whether it's being rejected by a studio or network, or whether it's a critic saying something that you don't like about your product, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get stuff made. And that in itself is a major accomplishment. So I try to like understand that like a no from a studio isn't a rejection per se of the work. It's just there's not enough space for it right now. And then, you know, as far as a critic saying something negative, it's just a byproduct of people trying to do their job and have a voice. But at the end of the day, you have to take pride in the fact that you created something, you were able to get it done, and you were able to share it with the world. And like anything else out there, there's going to be naysayers and there's going to be supporters. And hopefully you have the fortitude to make it through the critical folks and start thinking about the thing you want to do next. Because in our business, it's you're only as good as your last project, and you're always thinking about your next one. So
this is a 76ers-centric podcast, so we're going to talk about our squad in a minute. But, of course, you formed your loyalty to the Sixers because you grew up in the area. Just give us a thumbnail of where you grew up. I know you said you went to Friends Central, Lower Merion, Penn State. But just talk to us a little bit about where you grew up, and did you always want to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I was born and spent my first 6 years of life in an area called Winfield. 5408 Windale Avenue. I still remember that. And then, yeah, around 6 years old, my mom and dad and I'm an only child. We moved to Wynwood. I was already a student at Friends Central at the time, which made it very convenient, being in Wynwood and going to Friends Central. And I was there until through ninth grade. And then as a sophomore, I transferred to Lower Merion, partially because Friends Central dropped football the year before, and I really loved playing football. I was a serious athlete. I played basketball as well, and LM provided me both football and basketball, great education. And at that point, I'd kind of outgrown Friends Central. It's a really small school, and I needed a little more stimulation. So ultimately, yeah, that's my deal. I'm a Friends Central Lower Merion kid from Wynwood. And as far as like the Sixers, the Eagles, but the Sixers because it's a Sixer-centric podcast, I just fell in love with sports as a young kid, and basketball was the one I played throughout my adolescence, throughout high school. And I worshiped Dr. J and Andrew Toney and Maurice Cheeks and even like Mark Ivaroni, Bobby Jones. You know, I just loved those Sixers teams. And that was the first time I really was coming into like being a real fan. And like anything in Philly, it's like, as a Philadelphia sports fan, once you get injected with that fever, that fandom, you can't really turn it off. So as far as our Sixers now, you know, as they progress to this team that we have now, I'm like always cautiously optimistic. Every day I wake up and I check the box scores and see who we're playing, you know, tonight or the next day. I'm never going to give Boston that love. Boston.
Ever.
Ever. I hate Boston almost as much as I hate the Cowboys. And, you know, I just feel like we got the juice, man. We got the juice. We just got to squeeze it. You know, we got it.
Who's your favorite Sixer of all time and why?
Oh my gosh. My favorite all-time Sixer and why? That's so tough because, okay, as a kid, you know, when I really first discovered the Sixers, it was Dr. J. I just loved him because he was just like this untouchable hero to me. And then I met him, and then my mind was blown.
When was that? And when was that when you met Dr. J?
When I was a kid, I was really good friends with this family, the Miller family. This guy, my friend's dad was named Alan Miller. He's like a big guy in Philly. And my friends Mark and Marnie and Abby were his kids, and we all went to Friend Central together. And yeah, Alan and Doc were friends. So Doc would be around sometimes, and Doc was around the house, and I was like, oh my God, that's Dr. J. But so that was a really special way of meeting him also, because it wasn't like, you know, at the stadium or like at a signing thing. It was like kind of more natural, and it was really cool. But he was also just like a dude, right? Like, and you quickly realize that as well. But anyway, so that was the Dr. J part of my life. Barkley was just like, I just wanted to ball like Barkley. I just wanted to like be rough and tough. And he was the Sixer who I most identified with, like, as far as like my style of play. You know, he was just that guy for me. I like to go in and grab board. I'm only 6'2", but I love to be inside and play inside. I love to mix it up. So his game was most like mine, and that's the one I respected the most as far as like my skill set, and things that I thought I could actually do on the court similarly. I never thought I was going to be Dr. J flying through the sky and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
And then, you know, and I'm probably picking the same three guys most people pick, but then AI, it's just like, I mean, he was the guy that you had to root for. He was like smaller than everyone else. He had he had more hurdles, it felt like, than everyone else. He wasn't even supposed to be there unless Governor Wilder pardoned him in Virginia for that bowling alley incident. So he was like the underdog that you just fell in love with because he always was beating the odds. And then on the court, he just left it all out there. And although Charles did and Doc did and so many of our other guys did, when AI left it on the court, it felt a little bit extra because you also felt like he wasn't blessed with like the size of these other men, and he had to just dig in a little bit harder. So those are my three top Sixers. God, to pick one of them, I mean, I guess if you have to go back to hero worship, it has to be Dr. J because he was the first Sixer that I idolized. And even to this day, he's still Dr. J. So I guess, and I'm 50, so I guess it makes sense to pick the old head, the oldest of the old heads, and I go with Dr. J.
Yeah, and this is the 40th anniversary of the Sixers and their last title, winning in 1983. It's been that long. And
he got the chip, right? So he got the chip. Yeah. So that's a big distinguishing accomplishment between him and Charles at AI. So I guess that justifies me going with Julius Erving.
So your obvious love of hoops, of course, the fact that you played, you went to Lower Merion, and you can't help but think about the late Kobe Bryant. And although you guys were several years apart, you did have several meetings or interactions, we'll call them, right?
Yeah. So, you know, when he was a kid, you know, he was just that kid. Everyone was talking about him. And I had a buddy in high school who had a little brother who was really close with him. So there was a couple of moments of being at the home and interacting with him there. I did. We went back and scrimmaged them once, and I remember it was like a Saturday scrimmage, and he actually at one point tried to go up and dunking on me, and I remember grabbing him and being like, "Yo, kid, respect your elders," whatever the heck that means. And the next play down, he 180 dunked it on me, like hard, like screw you, old man. Of course, I was only 20 something, and I remember going up to him afterwards, and I was like, you know what, kid, if you stick with it, you work really hard, you may get a scholarship at Temple or Drexel or something like that. Just work hard. And he was like, whatever, man, whatever, and kind of like walked away. And that was the last time I saw Kobe Bryant until like the rest of the world. I just watched him shine, and I beamed with pride because he was a LM kid, and he also was from Wynwood. We went to the same park. I remember playing with him in the park a couple times, and he just was such a point of pride for me and for everyone. And I remember the day he died, we were at Sundance, and we were about to premiere a film we had there called Giving Voice, and actually won Sundance that year. But I remember the couple hours prior to the screening, this nasty rumor starting to spread about Kobe dying, and you saw cell phones in everyone's hand. And you have to remember Sundance, although in Utah, was a film festival full of LA people, so Lakers fans, and people were just losing their minds. And I remember I remember feeling such dismay as we went to do press for this movie and talk about this movie. And all I wanted to do was cry. And I remember that night they had a vigil in Sundance for Kobe, and they asked me to stay, but I got on a plane instead. And I just remember I went home, got home late, hugged and kissed my wife, and then just sat in front of the TV for hours and just bawled, like so many people. You didn't realize fully the impact Kobe had on all of our lives until he was gone. But I try to take that Mamba mentality in everything I do moving forward. And I just honor that guy. He's our guy. Lower Merion,
for sure.
he's our guy. You know, LA can claim him as they should, but
exactly, he is our guy at the very heart of things, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So utilizing, and that's an honor for him, taking the Mamba mentality as you move forward. What's the ultimate project you still need to make that might be just running around in your head, or, you know, on some scrap piece of paper that you think would be a crowning achievement, or you would hope to be a crowning achievement for you? 2
biopics, Mark. 1, I'd love to do the Kobe Bryant story.
Okay.
I would love to be able to do that. And then, you know, it may seem silly and want to just do it, but I believe that my guy John Legend has a story to be told. And I'd love to be a part of a project that highlights his journey as well, because it's an extraordinary journey that he's embarked on many years ago and that he's been living. So those are 2 things that I really, really love to do personally. That's just personal.
Anything in the hopper that you could sort of tease and say, hey, this is far enough along legally and otherwise that I can say, you know, in a year or so, maybe this will be ready to be shown or staged?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're doing the Bernie Mac biopic. We just got our script in for that, which we're really excited about. We just found out yesterday, we just won a bidding war for this title of this book called Before I Let Go. And we're doing that with Malcolm Lee, who's known for The Best Man, and Deborah Martin Chase, who I referenced earlier. I'm really excited about that. And we have a couple, you know, I find myself really fascinated with these big, shiny game shows and contestant shows that, like, you know, like The Voice, that you can watch all over the world. And speaking, we spoke up before about being more commercial. I feel like there's some big shiny floor trivia shows or competition shows that I want to do not only here in the States, but do globally. That's the big thing for me, is like, I'm really trying to figure out formats that we can do globally. Rhythm and Flow, we just did Rhythm and Flow France, and we're bringing back season 2 here in the States. We're going to keep expanding that. I think without being so specific and more broad, like, what I'm really looking forward to is our big global formats that we're pushing out, that we're going to try to do, again, like I said, globally. And then, you know, there's a handful of TV and film projects we have. We also launched Get Lifted Books. And we have our first 3 books, and our first title comes out later this year, followed by 2 more, one of which is written by a guy named Cole Brown, who is also a Philadelphian. So it was also another way to support Philly and Philly artists by using our platform to help them tell their stories. And yeah, I have a Zoom meeting in a few minutes, actually, with Stephen A. We're developing a show inspired by him that we're about to take out to market. So there's a lot of stuff. We have a lot of stuff kind of brewing. We're doing some stuff with Kevin Hart, another Philadelphian. So we have some stuff in the hopper and various stages of development. But we're excited about everything that we get to do. One thing I'm really excited about is a documentary, a short, that is going to be coming out on HBO. And I'm forgetting the name of the school right now. Hill, it's a charter school, but I apologize. I'm blanking on the name. I feel like that one of those moments where you put on the spot and you can't remember, and then it'll happen 10 seconds later. But it's this incredible music program where the kids kind of come and they have a full studio and all the equipment, and they create an album every year. And we're documenting this next album. And I got to go and meet the kids and speak with the kids and some of the people that are on the program. And that'll be on HBO later this year. And that's something I'm really excited about. That has a real Philly bend to it. And then, a couple other things. I have a movie with Bryant Tyree Henry, who's actually in Philly shooting right now, an Apple series based off of this really incredible band called the War and Treaty. We have a project with Misha Green, who created Underground, a TV show he worked on, in Lovecraft Country, that we love. It's kind of like a Black Notebook, beautiful love story. So it's just a lot of stuff that we have going on in various stages that I'm comfortable talking about, and hopefully we'll have it done in time to talk about it next year, at least one or two of them.
That is everything you just mentioned, everything you've done. It's just a marvelous career to this point, and all the best for the future. I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
I'm a big gratitude guy, that no moment should go without me saying thank you or trying to be appreciative for my own personal good fortune. Do you ever just get off the merry-go-round for a second, or you're sitting on the sofa with your kids, or you're having snuggle time with your wife, and you're saying to yourself, really? This is all happening to me. Do you have those moments?
My level of gratitude for the life that I've been able to kind of build for myself and my family, I have pinch me moments often. I think if you don't have the ability to step outside of your own skin and look at the bigger picture of this life journey that we're all on, but specifically mine, I think you're missing opportunity. So for me, I never dreamed of being in Hollywood and being a producer and all of these things. It was never really my dream. So it all happened organically. But I know, like, when I'm standing on the stage at the Oscars or the Tonys, or I'm on a movie set, or I'm in a meeting with Ty and John, who are two of my closest friends, and we actually get to look at each other and realize that we're doing these things and building these things together. I often think to myself, oh man, what a wonderful life. And I am beyond humbled by it, gracious for it. And at this point in my life, I turned 51 on Sunday. I just want to be able to pay it forward at this point in time. And I want my legacy to be really about being gracious and having gratitude and being able to, pay it forward. So yes, the answer to that question is 100%. I often take time to smell the roses.
Well, happy birthday. Continued success.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on with us. Just one last thing, Mike. Show us the full sweatshirt. We just need to see the full sweatshirt.
Leave Philly alone.
There you go. All the Hollywood, all the Austin, all the stars hasn't spoiled my man here. Mike Jackson, thank you so much.
Marc, thank you for having me. Continued success with the podcast and everything you do with your class at Temple. I've been a fan of yours for many, many years. I grew up watching you as well. And you're one of the reasons why I became a Sixers fan as well, because your commentary and your take on everything that we were doing. So thank you for thinking of me, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, my friend.
Peace.